Hey friends, it's Eva here, and today's video is all about your nervous system, which is such an important piece that I'm realizing that this should have been the first video that I recorded in my Sanctuary series, like video series. So if you've been following, I've done a couple of videos on like working with your triggers and living more from your body, all of these things that can help you like skillfully move through your life, centering spirituality at the core. And I realized, wait, but it's going to be really hard to do those things if your nervous system is shot. Because what I've realized is like so much of this spiritual work that we talk about doing requires a really solid nervous system. And I'm going to explain in a bit like what this all means and what it looks like. But like having a solid nervous system means that like you have the capacity to be with discomfort, essentially. And I don't want this to sound, even like I feel like whenever I say that, it sounds so like meh, go down, or like, oh, you have to be with discomfort. But my point is that when you expand your capacity of your nervous system, things are not going to be uncomfortable for you anymore. And think about how often that's already happened for you. Something that used to like be hard for you or uncomfortable for you is no longer a big deal, right? That's not because the thing changed, it's because you changed, because your capacity grew, or maybe you got used to something, or you weren't just like triggered by all these things anymore because you had experience at that point. So what I have seen and what I believe is that your potential for growth, expansion, evolution is directly proportional to how solid and whole, I don't know if whole's right, but like solid and grounded and resourced your nervous system is, which totally makes sense, right? Because growth in itself, to me, implies needing to be stretched, like challenged, like maybe taking some sort of risk. This can be in very practical ways, like maybe you want to like be a better public speaker, maybe you want to start your own business, maybe you need to break up with your partner of like 5 years, or maybe you want to like, or if let's take this like to the metaphysical level, maybe you want to try and I don't know, like dive into exploring chaos, or God, there's so many like spiritual things that I think of. It's like maybe you want to try living entirely in the present moment, doing only what you feel like to test out to see if that's safe or not, instead of like, so you can break free, I think, from the confines and the conditioning that you have about like, oh, I should be spending my time this way and this way and this way. Like I've had that practice before, which was super fun. Is like, what if I just listen to my body in every moment, every day, and see where that led me, and live that way instead of having a to-do list and like being worried about my obligations. And that's not easy, of course, because your brain, you're gonna be like, oh, like your brain's gonna tell you like this isn't responsible, this isn't safe, and your body's gonna be like, oh my God, like what am I doing? You're going to feel like some sort of discomfort or stress, even like quitting a job that you hate or something like that, right? It takes a certain amount of like your nerves and courage to do it without then having all the backlash that comes afterwards, and you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad, and you go into like a spiral. Do you know what I mean? Where you are just exhausted and maybe even a little bit traumatized. So again, nervous system work is foundational work, but I don't mean that as in like, oh, this is, you're going back to like kindergarten and you like have to start all over and this is like child's play. I mean by foundational, I mean it's like when you got your foundation set, again, it's like the foundation of a building. When that is set, everything else will just become easier and everything else will begin to start to fall in place, because again, your capacity for growth and expansion is directly connected to your capacity for your nervous system. So expand your nervous system and you will be able to just grow more easily, because all the things that you want to do that challenge you aren't going to freak you out so much. So that is nervous system. And God, where do I even go with this? Because there's like so many things I want to say about like how can we expand our nervous system? Why is it important? I'm gonna look at my notes really quick. Yeah, I wrote like working on your nervous system alone in itself is a worthy endeavor that will change your life. Like you keep it simple. You want to focus on one thing of all the things that I'm going to be teaching you. I mean, that's hard because I want to be like, let's like explore all the things. But again, this piece alone could change your life. So what do I mean when I talk about like expanding your nervous system? I'm going to give you an example that's talked about often in meditation, which is that, okay, so let me think. The goal is to become the whole sky. So what do I mean by that? In meditation, they often talk about how coming into like your being or tapping into consciousness means that you can experience and understand that this small piece of you is not you, but you're actually the whole, you're all of it, you're the whole thing. You're connected to all. And with meditation, the idea that, I often teach my clients is like, you're the whole sky, and the thoughts and the memories and the feelings that come through, they're allowed to be there, but they're just clouds passing through. The problem is, if you've ever meditated, what you realize is like, you think you're the cloud. You get so identified with the thought that you're having in that moment, whether it's like your to-do list, something about your job, like blah, 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 that you forget that you're the whole sky. And then all of a sudden you're down a rabbit hole of this thought, and it's all consuming, and you become your small self. What meditation teaches you is to expand your awareness so that all of a sudden, you know that you are not your thoughts. A thought about your job or your health comes in, and all you do is you say, oh, hey, like I see you, because you're the sky. You can hold space for it all. And you're like, hey, I see you. And the thought just like can pass through you without having to take up the whole freaking show, right? So why do I share this analogy? Because this is what it's like when your nervous system is like on hyperdrive or overly sensitive. It's like, let's just say this is your nervous system and everything is just like poking you, and you feel like totally overstimulated all the time, like you just can't show up for your life the way that you want to without maybe feeling like you're overwhelmed. That's it, like overwhelmed, because that's a great word for it. But what happens is, so this is your nervous system. What happens is, once you expand your nervous system's like get bigger and then bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Your capacity of your nervous system, it becomes the whole freaking sky, so that things that came into your life that maybe in the past would have triggered you or made you feel overwhelmed no longer overwhelm you that much, because all of a sudden they just like, how, well, you have the capacity for them to, it's a couple things, they pass through you, or I like to say you can hold space for all of it. You can, when I say you can hold it, I don't want that to give off the idea of like, oh, it's a 10-ton weight and you have to fucking hold it and it's heavy. No. It's more like, it's the same kind of holding that you would do for a child that was having a tantrum, and you can just let that kid have a tantrum, and you just say, hey, baby girl or baby boy, like, I see you, I got you, I'm giving you space, I'm gonna give you a big fat hug. You're allowed to cry it out. And you're not trying to like manipulate them or judge them, or while you let them kind of have your experience, you're holding that experience for them. You're holding that space for them, which is what you end up doing for yourself when, again, big things come up in your life. So this is what I mean when I say, I give you this visual because I want you to like have some concrete things, or like maybe this isn't tangible, but something that you can go to be like, okay, wait, what would it be like if my nervous system was expanded? And this is like so helpful because, again, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I want to just reiterate, when your nervous system is naturally feeling more resourced, then all the things that so many of us want to do becomes easier, like listening to your intuition. Like if you can't hear your intuition, how about this way? It's a lot easier to listen to your intuition, to even hear your intuition, if you're not like on like red alert all the time, right? You're like relaxed, present, spacious. If you want to tap into creativity and let ideas come through, also, again, you can't do that when you're all like blocked up and bunged up. It's like you gotta relax. So this is why I think nervous system work is like so important. Nervous system work. So yeah, I wrote like before I wasn't even this guy, I was just like this fucking knot. But the way that I like to think about it when I say expand your nervous system is it's very much akin to like going to the gym, where before, you could only do 10 sit-ups, and then all of a sudden you increase to 11 and then 12 and then 13, and all of a sudden you can do like 20 sit-ups, and then the next thing you know, you're doing fucking plank for like 2 minutes or something. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's the way that we want to go about doing this, and I will explain this, is like little by little, because of course, to me, it makes sense that if what you are trying to do is have your nervous system feel resourced, you don't fucking flood it with a bunch of shit and like stress yourself out and stress your body out, because that's like what started this whole problem in the first place. And I think our world is just conditioned to go into things like so intensely and so hard, and the best way to expand the capacity of your nervous system is to not be intense about it. Okay, so let's talk about how do we actually do this. Okay, I actually have another note here about, well, let me come back to that. I think this is, okay, there's a couple of different ways that you can work with your nervous system. The analogy that, or the saying that I love a lot that comes from Tara Brach, is this idea of meeting your edge and then softening. And I talk about this sometimes because I think it's such a wonderful way of explaining like what your internal experience is when you are pushing yourself. So meeting your edge and softening. That means in order to expand your nervous system, you will need to challenge yourself a little bit. But when you get to that, your edge, right? Your edge is your growth edge. When you get to that point, okay, I think my lip ring is gonna fall out. Don't know what's going on here. Okay, but when you get to that point, that's your growth edge. Most people have a tendency to either want to like push hard, or they're like white knuckling it. They're holding on because like, this is uncomfortable. Let me get like really rigid. And what I'm offering is, instead of when you meet that edge, you soften. And I hope you can like even feel into what I mean by that. It's like whatever soft looks and feels like for you in that moment, I think you can feel into it, but it's often of like a sense of like compassion, kindness, patience, speaking to yourself with humility and grace, giving yourself exactly what you need in that moment. So like, okay, here's like a perfect example. I have clients, this happens all the time. They have some new goal, they have a challenge, and they want to do something. And part of our work is they will finally do the thing that they've been wanting to do. And I'm there also to like hold them accountable. And then they've done it. Like maybe they needed to send out an email to their whole family to tell them that they were about to start their own business, or they finally had their like finish this art piece that they've been working on and they want to show it to the world. So they do that. But then what happens is there's usually this backlash, or like this vulnerability hangover, where they go, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Like, I'm so embarrassed. the nervous system is speaking, and there's all this self-doubt going on, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to soften into that edge where normally you might say, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. What was I thinking? People are judging me, like blah, blah. Notice the intensity in that. This is your opportunity to be like, nope, I've met my edge and I'm just going to be like, this is uncomfortable. This is like really uncomfortable. I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm not really sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to like let this discomfort be here and pass through me, but also I'm going to acknowledge, instead of like beating down on myself, I'm going to acknowledge myself for having done something really great. I should be really proud of myself. And I'm going to like, I got me in this moment. So that is like what it is to like meet your edge and to soften. And this can be super subtle because that's like a more like specific example, but this can happen all the time. It's about the dialogue in your head often. It's like, oh, like this is so uncomfortable. And it's how you respond to that discomfort that's also going to affect how your nervous system feels. And when your response to discomfort is some type of kindness or respect, what that tells your nervous system is like, oh, hey, I expanded this. I was with this discomfort for a little bit. It was really uncomfortable. And I wasn't an asshole to myself. And also, I'm still safe. And the fucking world didn't end. Look, I'm safe. And then you go, you're like, okay, cool. I can do this. And then you're like, I can do this again. And then you're like, oh, well, I can do this. I can do this huge fucking thing that I could not have done even 5 months ago. Do you hear what I'm saying? And I think I use the word safety. I think that's like really important because so much of this is about knowing, feeling, and cultivating safety within yourself, within your body, within your own experience, right? Because a lot of the nervous system is just a response to being like, danger, danger, danger. I need to like protect myself. I need to like, freak out or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'm in danger and I'm freaking out. And it's like a lot, essentially, like when I say meet your edge and soften, it's very much akin to being like, how can you remind yourself that you are still safe? That reality is much kinder than what your body might be telling you, or even more importantly, than what your body might be telling you. And so this is like another really big piece. When I say meet your edge and soften, a lot of this has to do with like somatic work as well. And what I mean by that is, okay, so this is like a whole lesson in itself, but so I teach a course called Emotional Alchemy, which is all about how to be with uncomfortable emotions that come up so that they can move through you. But the truth is, what I'm teaching here is very similar to that. It's like when you can be with emotions, what you are doing is you're the sky and you're letting the emotion pass through you. So that doesn't live in you, because trauma is what happens when something comes in, it gets fucking stuck and it doesn't move and it paralyzes you and it's stuck. That's trauma. We're doing the opposite. We are going to be like, hey, this is something that's uncomfortable. How can I be with it? Which means to fully acknowledge it, to be very present with your experience. It's the most loving and kind thing that you can do. Being with what is, this is again, spiritual foundational truths that are simple but also deeply profound. It's like, how can I be with this uncomfortable emotion? And you're going to find that if you can be with it and give it space, then it can have its life and it's not going to stay with you forever. So emotion, energy in motion, it's meant to move. Energy in motion. But if you don't give it space, if you don't do that thing where you're like, the little kid, or the example I gave you earlier of the little kid throwing a tantrum, if you say, no, don't cry, like blah, 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 like you're, whatever, you're not supposed to cry. That's like saying to your emotions, like, no, don't be here, like shove it away, and then it stays stuck in your body. Whereas what I'm saying is like, you tell the kid, get it out, like be a human being. This is uncomfortable. Let yourself be uncomfortable, but you can only do that from a place of love. There's no such thing as like, well, that's not true. I guess you can like let yourself be uncomfortable from a place of judgment, but I'm like, I don't even know how that works. That just further produces more discomfort, and then you get into like a self-hate, like really toxic cycle. What I'm saying is like, meet your discomfort with unconditional love. And this is like the basis of so much of what I teach people, because again, foundational and like, this is it. Like, this is it in so many ways. How can you meet your discomfort with love? Doing that is essentially the code, the password to like calming down your body, reinforcing that it's safe for your nervous system to feel these things, and then it'll like pass through you. And safety, safety, safety. And that can like, you need to know essentially that you can do all the things that you really desire to do but feel scary, because all the things that you want to do generally at some point are going to feel scary. Like, and as you go along, you're going to challenge yourself even more, right? And for me, oftentimes I think about this in the spiritual context, like, I want to totally fucking let go. Whatever that means, I would like to get to a point where I can let go, maybe not forever, but experience letting go of this reality, of this dimension, of this, of any of this material, like this, like to go beyond the material, which is what I see, and dive really deep into the unseeable, into the mystery. And let me tell y'all, for me, that's very scary, because for me, I have this fear of like becoming like totally unhinged. And I also, that's also like, I can't do that though, because I'm like a very grounded person and I want to be able to experience both. But in order for me to follow that path, which I just feel like, knowing my personality, I will continue to follow my heart and go in that direction. It means if I want to like let go, like completely let go of my perceived reality, I need to feel safe. I need to feel resourced. And that can be, I need to feel safe, yes, like with my community and my loved ones and having a house over my head, but it's like, I need to feel safe here, like in my mind and in my body. And how do I do that? It's me constantly, not constantly, it's more like me actively, me actively doing this work that I'm talking about, which is like loving work. This is love's work, to be with yourself unconditionally and to be like, oh, this is uncomfortable and I can be with this. Okay, this is uncomfortable and I can be with this. This is uncomfortable, I can be with this, and not be an asshole to myself essentially. And I got me, and I can remind myself that I'm safe. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. What I mean when I say like expanding your nervous system. All right, so let's talk about how you can actually do this. So I've talked about like what this looks like on a very subtle level, meaning like the good thing about this is like, this doesn't necessarily have to be like tangible homework where you go away and you have to like fill out something in a worksheet. It's like, you can do this every day in your waking life just by paying attention to your experience, just by being aware of your inner world and your reactions and your body. You can tend to this any time of day, which is why I think the change can actually happen quickly, because it's almost already part of your like wired into your DNA. It's just about like, how are you intentionally going out and experiencing your life? That being said, there are some things that I think have been incredibly helpful for me that I know are incredibly helpful for other people. And this is not going to surprise you, y'all. Like, this is going to be like basic stuff. Let's talk about meditation, because that, for me, single-handedly has been like the biggest game changer, which is why I teach people about meditation. Like, I am a meditation teacher, and this is a huge part of my work. I'm trying to decide how much I want to go into this, because we all know, you've already heard it before, meditation is really helpful for you, blah, blah, blah. But The reason it's helpful is because you're setting aside time every day to practice this, which is like you're sitting here, thoughts come in, and maybe you're a little bit uncomfortable or something annoys you or something stressful, you're worried about time, and all of a sudden, but you're not reacting to it. You're actually being responsive where you can say, hey, I see you, you're allowed to be here. And also I'm going to come back and focus on my breathing and be more in my body and understand that I don't have to let my compulsive reactions dictate my experience, right? So there's so many reasons why meditation is helpful. I mean, but one of them is even just becoming more mindful of your breath, because your breath on a physiological level is the thing that's going to help you regulate your nervous system. And a lot of us aren't even breathing properly, right? So like, if you want a tangible thing to do, meditation, like it's right here, right? Like that's what I think is so cool about this, is like, just like a muscle, just like anything else, meditation is something that you can practice again and again, that over time you're going to be like, oh shit, like I can be with things. I can be with my own discomfort essentially. And again, it's not so that you're holding on to a bunch of discomfort. It's so that actually the discomfort shrinks, you expand. So things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore. Yeah, so I want to be careful about this. I don't want to say there's like one right way to work with your nervous system, because there's not. It's anything that, like, this is all going to sound so basic, but it's all the stuff that people think about when they talk about taking care of your body, like wellness lifestyle stuff. So I would actually want to put this at the top of the list: fun and joy. Like doing anything that is actively fun for you and you're out there laughing, having a good time, not thinking about your worries, that's very good for you. And you know, that's like an automatic thing that's going to take you out of like fight or flight mode and into like presence and being in your body. So joy, top of the list. Nature, top of the fucking list. I'm not going to go into every single one of these things because you probably all know already, like the research is out on all of these things, right? Why it's so good for you. Grounding work, like this is a whole nother thing. If you want to learn about grounding, there's a lot of people out there who teach it better than I do, but it is about the idea of being intentional about grounding your energy body into the earth. Okay? If you have questions about that, you can ask me. Even something as simple as like taking your hand and putting it over your heart and maybe like reminding yourself that you are safe in those sticky moments that feel really challenging, again, where your nervous system is being like triggered and you're like on edge. Yeah, like when you are on edge and you're like overwhelmed, this is not just some like cheesy thing. It's about, there's intention to this. Like if you do it with the intention of like breathing, connecting back into your body, taking a moment to pause, but there's also something like tactile, I think, about touch and putting your hand over your heart that can ground you and that can remind you to come back to yourself and to let this become a place of refuge. There's like so many other things that you can do. Yoga, you know, any kind of like self-care. It's basic. It's like giving yourself space, reading the Akashic records, dancing, art, Tai Chi, rocking your baby to sleep, playing with pets. Like this is all stuff that you already know. It's about like, hey, how can I prioritize stillness and slowness and presence? What I want you to remember is that you already know this, but I'm hoping that this gives you kind of more insight as to why these things are important. Because it's all connected. Like take care of yourself, nervous system's in check. Then when it comes time to actually do the damn thing and meet challenging situations and push yourself in a way that's going to feel really empowering to you, then you'll be able to do that. All connected. So it is about like prioritizing this. And so one thing that I want to talk about is lifestyle, because hold on, let me take another sip of water. Yeah, very thirsty when I do these things. Lifestyle that, depending on where you are, it's subjective and people are going to need different things. Oh, let me talk about, okay, really quickly, exercise. So exercise sometimes can be like a really great outlet for de-stressing. I love exercise. The only thing I would say is like to be careful, because sometimes you can, a lot of people, I've had this experience, but I know a lot of people who have over exercise, and that overstimulates your body. It actually like exhausts your like adrenals, can do a world of harm if you are pushing yourself too much. So this is about just being self-aware, being in balance, not using, for some people, I've noticed that some people have like the physical makeup where they can push themselves physically so hard. And for the most part, it's all therapeutic and really healthy. I'm not like that. I need to be really thoughtful about the exercise that I do. I used to be that person. I used to be the person who did CrossFit, ran long distances, and I burned my body out. So just a word of something to pay attention to. But I do, so going back to this whole thing about lifestyle is, it's interesting because I'm kind of curious, like who's watching this video. I don't tend to attract, I used to attract a lot more people who lived like very, very intense lifestyles, and they really needed to prioritize rest and space. I think less of those people have been coming into my field, maybe because I think I've changed. I've like, that used to be my story, and it's just been so much time, and I've changed my lifestyle so much, and that was, yeah, it's just not a part of my story so much anymore. But I will say that what was my situation, which I think, you know, a lot of people still live this way, is that you have this sleep till you're dead mentality. You're a workaholic, you, a ton of social obligations, things back to back to back, drinking all the time, smoking, doing a ton of drugs. Again, that used to be me. And of course, my, like, I like, it's so silly, dude. Of course, my whole fucking nervous system, like all of my body was shot. Like I was so anxiety ridden and so uptight and nervous and worried all the time. You know, you could just call that anxiety. And we don't even have to talk about nervous system stuff. It's just like, if you are in a state of anxiety, then yeah, your nervous system, it's the same thing. Like your nervous system is shot. How do you change that? Well, if your life needs a little bit of an upgrade, then you need to give yourself an upgrade. By upgrade, I don't mean doing more, I mean more space. Doing more of these things that nourish you, that nourish your body and nourish your soul. And when I say, I intentionally talk about like lifestyle upgrade, because I think for some people, it needs to be drastic. Not everyone. Some people can just like do meditation or something. And if you're in a, that might be all that you need. It's going to be different for everyone. So like run this through your own perspective in your own body and see what you need. But for a lot of people out there, they need a whole lifestyle change. And that can 100% happen because it happens all the time. So that's what I want to say about lifestyle. And then I think I want to end this. Let's see how long this is getting. Oh, okay, this is getting long. So I'm going to give you some examples of what can change when your nervous system is expanded. I think I've talked about, yeah, intuition, so many things. Like I can't, it's a lot of it is, I have practical things here, but honestly, a lot of it is also like the cool, mystical, esoteric shit. Like maybe living more deeply in connection to your guides, or feeling more connected to the earth, or being really in touch with feminine energy within you. However, on a more practical note, what happens when you feel more resourced? For example, maybe you're no longer afraid of confrontation, right? So if your nervous system is shot, you're anxious all the time, when you have to get into confrontation with someone, even if in the moment, I mean, maybe in the moment you're like super defensive, you are yelling and you're not even like speaking clearly. And then by the time you're done, you also like feel really bad and you constantly like are overthinking what you said. It's just like this whole anxious mess. But obviously when you're like, what is possible when your nervous system expands, then it's like, oh, then you can have confrontation. This isn't about not having confrontation. It's about, I can be totally present for this uncomfortable situation and show up really capable and really clear, which is like a really cool feeling, right? You feel like you are in your life and that you are in control and you're confident and you're present and you're the kind of person that people want to be around. What else? Yeah, I don't know. This used to happen to me a lot when someone would ask me of a request and I would say no, then I'd be like, oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. So like, this is a wonderful example of how you can meet your edge and soften. If normally I would be like, oh, I feel so bad. I feel like a bad person. I would actually just like take a moment and be like, okay, look, I understand that this is really uncomfortable. Maybe it's bringing up all these old stories about how like, whatever, I need to be I'm not a good, I don't know, old stories about like that I feel like I was conditioned to as a woman, that like I'm supposed to be nurturing and take care of everyone, blah, blah, blah. I could be like, I said no, I set a really firm boundary, and then that was uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, can I be with this discomfort? And I'm like breathing into it. It's being with this discomfort and saying, this is part of it. This is part of like meeting my edge. This is part of what is going to, I keep thinking of expansion. This is like part of what's going to build up this muscle. There we go. That's another way of saying it. Yeah, it's like anything like going public speaking, going on a date, getting shots. I know people who I've worked with who are really afraid of getting shots, and I've helped them with that, and they no longer are afraid of getting shots. Perform any kind of performance. All of these things are things that people want to, that are necessary and part of like living a really full life. And when your nervous system is expanded, again, before maybe you had to public speak and the whole thing would just overwhelm you and it would feel so uncomfortable. But then when you become the sky, you can public speak. The situation is the same. The situation didn't change. You changed. Your capacity grew. So nurture your nervous system. Regulate your nervous system. And I think it's because, and I say this because, again, okay, this like, I remember, where did I hear this? It was this idea of like, someone was like, okay, but how do I tap into my spiritual gifts? Was the question that someone asked. And then the person was like, they gave a really solid answer. And they're like, the first step is to work on your nervous system. But I was like, yeah, but you're not explaining like how to do that. What the heck does that even mean? And so I wanted to offer this to all of y'all. Let me know if you have any questions, if this resonated with you, let me know. I love hearing from you guys. And that's it for today. Bye.